Atlanta this we'll be talking about all things family and community engagement and all things community schools. And much of what we're talking about today is a subset of that. Today's discussion is critically important. We've got an incredible panel. Transforming family community engagement partnerships is part of the overall or the overarching theme of this one. But this one is particularly important because we're really focusing in on the ways we can depoliticize family engagement and social emotional learning. And increasingly in our society, things are so polarized, and it's a lot of the cultural wars that are going on sometimes leave us wondering what's the best way to proceed. And yet we do have to do this work. We do have to engage families. We do have to strengthen family, school, community partnerships. And at the end of the day, all of this is in service of improving outcomes for kids. So I'll stop there, turn it back over to Daniel, and look forward to a really powerful webinar.
Thank you so much, Kwesi. So to start our conversation and provide a little bit of framing for today's webinar, I do want to introduce Kate Claybaugh. So Kate joined National PTA in January 2022 as the Director of Government Affairs. She leads the policy and advocacy efforts of National PTA to help mobilize PTA and parent leaders nationwide to enhance our nation's public education system so every child may reach their full potential. Kate, take it away.
Thanks, Daniel, and thanks, Kwesi, both of you for having me today. Here at National PTA, our mission is to engage and empower families and communities to advocate for all children. For those of you new to PTA, we are an organization of nearly 3 million members working together to make every child's potential a reality. Now, we are very excited for today's conversation for our Transforming Family School Partnerships PTA National Standards for Webinar Series. I would like to start by thanking National PTA for partnering, of course, with the Institute for Educational Leadership on this webinar series. I also want to thank all of you who joined us for last year's initial webinars. We appreciate your desire to learn through conversation and put knowledge into practice to set all of our students up for success. We are all here today because we know families are essential partners to providing a high-quality education for every student. And based on decades of research, we know that students whose families are engaged are more successful, and we also know that teachers and schools are better off when they invest in engaging with families. The question for all of us is no longer if family engagement matters, it is how we can do it in a way that helps our communities, schools, and young people thrive. This question is also why, over 20 years ago, National PTA created the National Standards for Family School Partnerships. These PTA national standards set the bar for how we all should work together to support student success and have been critical, I can share with all of you, in our ongoing advocacy, especially on Capitol Hill and in Washington, D.C. Since their initial creation, the National Standards for Family School Partnerships have been used by PTAs, schools, districts, state education agencies, and of course, the U.S. Department of Education for accountability and support for strong family engagement, including as the foundation for PTA's own School of Excellence program. There are 6 tenets of PTA's National Standards for Family School Partnerships. First, welcome all families. This envisions the school treating families as valued partners in their child's education and facilitating a sense of belonging in the school community, which we know now more than ever before is so important for our children to feel like they belong. Communicate effectively. This pictures the school supporting staff engaging in a proactive, timely, two-way communication so that all families can easily understand and contribute to their child's educational experience. 3, support student success. This focuses on the school building and the capacity of families and educators to continuously collaborate to support students' academic and, of course, social and emotional learning. 4, speak up for every child. This centers the school in affirming family and student expertise and advocacy so that all students are treated fairly and have access to relationships and opportunities that will support their success. 5, share power. This envisions the school partnering with families in decisions that affect children and families, and together, as a team, inform, influence, create policies, practices, and programs. And I can share with all of you, we have actually selected Share Power for Every Child as our theme for our upcoming National PTA's Legislative Conference, taking place in DC, March 5th through 7th. And finally, 6, collaborate with community, which aims to have the school collaborate with community organizations and members to connect students, families, and staff to expanded learning opportunities, community services, and civic participation, which, given especially the very daunting task of academic recovery right now, we know is so important to the overall well-being of our students. In 2022, National PTA was excited to update the National Standards for Family School Partnerships with 3 main goals: incorporate new research, integrate the perspectives of families, educators, and youth, particularly those from historically marginalized communities, and overall improve the usefulness of the standards across the education system. To learn more about the updated PTA national standards, we encourage you to watch last year's webinars that highlight best practices and offer strategies for implementing PTA's 6 national standards. This year's continuation of our Transforming Family School Partnership webinar series will dive deeper into specific topics related to strengthening family school partnerships through our national standards for family school partnerships. This series will highlight system-level issues related to family engagement through panel discussions with leading practitioners, researchers, and policymakers who are improving family school partnerships so that all children can reach their full potential. Today's session will highlight ways in which we can refocus the debate on what effective family school partnerships can look like and uplift the critical importance of social emotional learning. We've invited 4 incredible individuals here to help guide us in conversations we may be part of right now at the national, state, and local levels, and address concerns that are coming up when the opinions of a few families are outweighing the beliefs of the majority of parents within a school community. Families want to feel welcomed, included, and be in a position to set their child up for success. Again, now, more than ever before, let's find a path forward where we are supporting all families and offering a positive experience in how they can and should engage with educators and school leaders. I'm excited to hear about all the incredible work these panelists and their respective organizations are doing to contribute to setting students up for success and the goals of PTA's national standards. And now I'm pleased to welcome our moderator, Jennifer Miller. For nearly 30 years, Jennifer has worked with educators and families to help them become more effective with children through social emotional learning. She authored and illustrated the book, Confident Parents, Confident Kids, Raising Emotional Intelligence in Ourselves and Our Kids, and founded the organization by the same name 11 years ago, growing an international platform through her blog. Jennifer?
Kate, thank you so much for the introduction. It is an honor to be with the esteemed panelists today. Kate, your words were so wise and kind of lead and set the tone for our conversation today. I want to challenge all of you. We're going to do a inclusive welcoming activity. And I think it's also a challenge, which is if you would articulate in the chat, how can you share our big intention for what we want for schools engaging parents as authentic partners and for the social and emotional learning of our school community without using buzzwords. So how can you express our big intention? If we fly up 10,000 feet, what do we really want for our schools? And that'll help us get started today. So please go ahead and type in the chat our biggest picture intention for our shared purpose in education. Dream together for our kids, says Michelle. Shared vision, two-way partnership, collaborating, love and connection, parent community engagement, meaningful intentional relationships, thriving communities. I love that. Inclusive, welcoming environments for kids and families. Shared power, as we heard that focus is going to be for the National PTA. Caregivers, valued relationships, ability to speak up, partnerships, honoring the power our families bring, hearing everyone, welcoming all families, trust, many voices, one song. I like that. Embrace dreams, wellness, shared power. Keep them coming. We will, although I may not call every single one out, we have a big audience today. We will take them all in and appreciate those as tone setters as our panel thinks about responding to the questions around what our shared purpose is and how we can all engage in that shared purpose. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce our esteemed panel. First, Rose Acera was elected to National PTA as Vice President of Advocacy in June 2023. Rose leverages her decades of experience as a community leader to mobilize PTA members across the nation to advocate for policies that help to make every child's potential a reality. And I'm assuming, Rose, that you're also a parent. Maybe that's apparent in the introduction, but I really like to call that out. So welcome, Rose. Next, we have Juan Carlos Ocon. He is the principal of Benito Juarez Community Academy, a Chicago Public Schools neighborhood high school. He is in his 13th year of service as principal of Benito Juarez and his 24th year in Chicago Public Schools. Juan Carlos, welcome to our panel. And we have Dr. Josh Garcia. He is the current superintendent of Tacoma Public Schools in Washington State. Josh and his team lead a number of groundbreaking reform initiatives to increase student and family engagement for academic success through community partnerships. Welcome, Josh. And finally, last but not least, for sure, Lakeisha Steele is CASEL's Vice President of Policy. Lakeisha leads CASEL's federal and state strategy for advancing social and emotional learning and public policy. Welcome, Lakeisha. All right, let's begin with Lakeisha. Lakeisha, thank you for joining us today, bringing your world of insight. We know that you've had policy experience, extensive policy experience at the legislative and executive branches. We thought you'd be the perfect person to help outline today's political landscape. That sounds like a big job, but you're up to the task. Could you please describe what the current state of political discourse is related to family engagement and social and emotional learning? Give us the big picture, and what impact has this discourse had on our nation's schools and students?
Thank you so much for this question, Jennifer. I couldn't imagine being a part of a more important and salient conversation right now. What's happening is that we are seeing a deeply divisive and polarizing political environment where a small vocal minority is pushing its will onto the majority to undermine our public education system and to create schools where children do not belong. When we look at the facts, we know that the data shows that the majority of parents support their local schools. The majority of parents support social emotional learning in schools. The majority of parents care that their children are taught the accurate history of this country. And the majority of parents are concerned about book bans in our schools. When we look at the policies that are resulting from this divisive and polarizing environment, it is contrary to what parents want in our schools and what is best for children. When we look at a recent analysis on these divisive policies and how it's impacting our schools, we see that it is disrupting teaching and learning. We see that it is also harming school and family partnerships and family and teacher relationships. A recent study specifically looking at a school district in Pennsylvania found that these divisive policies have led to violations of student civil rights protections, and the creation of hostile school environments. Now, based on the warm, inclusive welcome and everything that we know about what it takes to create warm and inclusive schools, I think we all can admit that these policies that we are seeing are contrary to the needs of what students are facing in our schools today. Right now, we're at a critical inflection point in our education system, where we are seeing, as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, lags in learning, a skyrocketing chronic absenteeism issue. We continue to see a youth mental health crisis. So the types of policies that we need must ensure that it follows the research. We know that the research around family engagement shows that family engagement is critical to students' academic success. It's critical to student and teacher relationships. It's foundational to school climate, and it supports students' social and emotional learning. We also know that the research on social emotional learning, which helps children develop lifelong skills that are essential for their success, that it's essential to their academic development and their overall well-being. I can tell you, as a former congressional staffer, when the Every Student Succeeds Act was passed in 2015, that reauthorized our nation's the Elementary and Secondary Education Act of 1965, it was organizations like the National PTA who were at the table ensuring that there were provisions in the law to support family engagement, to support student success. Right now, what should be the topic of discussion in our political discourse is how these provisions are being leveraged at the state and district level. How schools, districts that receive Title I, how are they using those funds to create that 1% set aside for family engagement? And that's not nearly enough. But nevertheless, these are provisions that school districts should be leveraging to make sure that there's meaningful family engagement. We also know that there's meaningful consultation across all of our ESEA programs, from Title II to professional development, to Title III on English learners, as well as our student support and academic enrichment grants programs. What we should be focusing on is shining the light on school leaders like Juan Carlos from Chicago Public Schools, who is the principal at Benito Juarez High School in Chicago. We should be shining the light on superintendents like Dr. Joshua Garcia of Tacoma, Washington. These are leaders right now at the forefront of this crisis, where a political discourse is not focused on how they are effectively leading their schools and districts to support students' academic success and social emotional learning. And they're doing this by getting buy-in from the families and their community. They understand that strong family engagement can only continue to help students succeed in schools. And they also know that strong family engagement makes social emotional learning programs more effective. And that, unfortunately, is not the focus of our political discourse, but it certainly should be, and which is why I'm here today and so grateful that we have Juan Carlos and Dr. Joshua Garcia with us today.
Lakeisha, thank you so much for your helpful comments. So appreciate you kind of bringing us around to the practical application of looking at practitioners who are making it happen and holding up those models, which we will do today. I want to turn the conversation to Rose, because your experience as a parent advocate is so key in this conversation. So Lakeisha really set the scene. We are having these polarized discussions, despite the fact that the work goes on, and we know that this big picture focus, this shared intention that we brought in today of well-being and thriving for school communities is where we need to focus. So Rose, if you could comment on how can parents and families effectively engage in school decision-making?
Great. Thank you, Jennifer, for the question and for allowing me to participate in today's meaningful conversation. I do want to start today by reminding our audience who are here with us that this week we are celebrating National PTA's Take Your Family to School Week. And this week is designated to provide families with an opportunity to get more involved in their child's education and to strengthen their partnership with teachers and other administrators. It is such a great week that we are having this critical discussion. And I hope many of our schools are using this week to invite their families into their school to celebrate. So yes, you know, you mentioned I am definitely a parent. My boys are older, but I still advocate for every child when it comes to being able to set them up for success. So now getting back to your question and what advocates like myself can do to prioritize and strengthen family school partnerships, I'd like to begin by sharing that it is a proven fact that family school partnerships help improve academic outcomes. It's why I got involved. It's why other parents should get involved. So not only is it crucial that parents, guardians, and other caregivers are part of their children's educational success and part of important decisions that impact their children and schools, but it is also essential that they feel welcome to be part of this partnership. For decades, solid family school partnership policies, practices, and procedures have been critical to any successful school system. We must work together to educate, update our local educational systems for all families, and National PTA has the greatest resources to help with this. Our national standards for family school partnerships provide much needed guidance on effective strategies for equitable and intentional family engagement by schools. This vital work must be reflected in law and policy at the federal, state, and local levels to impact our nation's students and schools willingly. At National PTA, along with our million of PTA members nationwide who represent parents, educators, and caregivers alike, and may I add, are some of the strongest advocates when it comes to all children, are asking our decision makers for the following. 1, a rejection of any funding proposal in Congress to eliminate the statewide Family Engagement Centers program. And we urge funding for the program at a minimum of $25 million to enable more states to be served by this program. This will help to strengthen family school partnerships. In an ideal situation, $60 million is needed for this program to serve families in all states nationwide. Number 2, greater transparency. And this is so important because Congress can and should encourage districts and state education agencies, otherwise known as SEAs, to distribute their family engagement policies and elementary and secondary education act plans to families, to also publish evaluations of their family engagement policies and plans online, and also to give reasonable notice to families when there are opportunities to provide input. It is so essential that the parent voice is always invited to the table. I was so glad to hear Lakeisha mention how, you know, National PTA has been at the table, and we will continue that. 3, greater access. Congress should encourage school districts and state education agencies to communicate with families in an accessible language and format, and to provide targeted assistance in engaging harder to reach families in the community and in our states. Parents who do not speak or read English or are educated in other countries may be unfamiliar with expectations when it comes to family school partnerships, but it definitely does not mean that they don't care. They do care and they want to be involved, and it's our job that we involve them. 4, greater accountability. Congress should clarify for families, school districts, state agencies that meaningful discussion means as required under the Elementary and Secondary Education Act and any further reauthorization of the legislation. You know, in summary, these partnerships are the cornerstone of everyday education. So we need to continue building bridges between schools, families, and communities to benefit our students and society, so that together we truly can make every child's potential a reality.
Oh, Rose, thank you so much. So much richness in the points that you made, greater access, greater accountability. Thank you so much. We're going to turn to our school principal for insight. Juan Carlos Ocon is the principal of Benito Juarez Community Academy in Chicago, Illinois. Thank you, Juan Carlos, for being here. As a principal, you really have to communicate the efforts that are going on inside your school building with the larger community. So we would like some insight, or can you describe what parental involvement, parental engagement, and social and emotional learning actually look like in your school setting?
Thank you, Jennifer. I am particularly excited to be here because we have to flip the script. No one knows more than parents the importance of the impact of social emotional learning on child and adolescent development than parents. That is clear, especially at the high school level. And I want to reiterate that Juarez is a large Chicago public high school. I say that because I think everyone talks about how difficult it is to get meaningful parental involvement in a large urban high school setting. And I want to talk about that at Juarez, gifted students, dedicated teachers, caring and supportive parents work together to create a place that we truly believe continually exemplifies what is possible in education. Our mission is to engage all members of the learning community in relevant and rigorous academic programs that celebrate individual and combined strengths, nurture social and intellectual development. I'm going to repeat that. Nurture social and intellectual development and inspire active participation as learners. We are home to challenging and rigorous programs that yield great results. Absolutely. However, a more profound measure of our success is evident when we reflect on the intellectual, social, and emotional development that can't be captured on standardized tests. We're nurturing extremely capable, creative, and ethical leaders who are positively impacting the world around them. And we can't do this work without a true partnership with parents. So today, I want to speak about two ways that we're doing this at Juarez. One, in 2016, Juarez began the transition to competency-based education as a way to address the academic and social emotional needs of students. The result is that Juarez is a thriving neighborhood high school and a school of choice for many families. And two, we created a robust parent university that has allowed us to have an open door policy for parents and includes a full-time parent program coordinator whose mission and vision is to make parents full partners with us in the education of their children. A parent group that meets regularly with me to advise and make recommendations on SEL practices that impact their children. This group is responsible for the creation of the parent handbook, which means that they write policy, that they advise on policy and make recommendations. Under Parent University, we offer free GED, ESL, computer classes, even Zumba, arts and crafts, cooking, nutrition, health and wellness, and a myriad of workshops on diverse topics for all of our parents. A safe passage program that is run by our parents, a parent patrol program that allows for parents to assist in the daily operations of the school. Perhaps the most compelling contribution is the fact that as part of our transition to competency-based education, we adopted 5 developmental competencies: self-awareness, self-management, perseverance, relationship skills, and social awareness. Parents have helped us make meaning of the developmental competencies and are helping support these efforts in the school. 2 years ago, as we were returning from the isolation of the pandemic to in-person learning, one thing was evident. All of us have had and continue to have social emotional needs. 2 years ago, I partnered with CASEL to bring to our school a transformative adult SEL series for my teachers and staff, rooted in the 5 focal constructs of transformative SEL: identity, agency, belonging, collaborative problem solving, and curiosity. This work with CASEL has been powerful, but we didn't stop there. We again partnered with CASEL and brought to Juarez the SEL Caregiver Series. We selected 10 parents who went through the CASEL SEL Transformative Caregiver Series. They loved it. These 10 parents were then trained to facilitate their transformative SEL Caregiver Series to other parents. Soon enough, we had parents as facilitators helping other parents. Parents are tackling topics like emotional safety, managing stress with mindfulness, and facing conflict, among others. We've seen the impact of this at the school: more involved parents, more successful students. The parents who are facilitators are now on the board of our school and are leading the parent groups. This means, again, that they are impacting policy. Today, we had a learning walk. As part of our learning walk, teacher teams visited classrooms to take a pulse on how we're doing with culture and climate and with teaching and learning. 3 parents and 4 students joined me on the learning walk. Their voice matters, and it will inform our continuous improvement.
Juan Carlos, I started to take notes on the practices to try to keep track. There were so many that I couldn't keep track of them all. It's incredible the work that you're doing. You have so many practices and policies in place that share power with families. I'll underscore: all members celebrate strengths and social intellectual development. Thank you for your sharing and all of your important work. We're going to turn now from the school level to the district level. So Josh Garcia is a superintendent in a large public school system in Washington State. Josh, how have you been navigating these political waters to ensure that you are focusing on that big picture?
Wow, yeah, and I think everyone on the call got these really powerful insights. And so I'll apologize a little bit for my randomness, right? So when you're in the storm and trying to navigate that, you have to have a beacon, right? You have to have a beacon, and that beacon can't change in a new motto. It has to be grounded in a value, right? And then you have to define that when you're building community, right? I think we forget sometimes that when we talk about community, that we have to define shared terms, shared meanings. Juan Carlos talked a lot about that in his work at a local level. So a little bit of context: Tacoma Public Schools is a port city, 70 different languages. We have numerous first generation kids from all over the world. We're predominantly that. And so that brings a lot of beauty, but it also brings a lot of opportunity for the need for shared meaning. So we focused in on the whole child. And I'll get to the politicalnesses of this. First and foremost, I'd really encourage folks to stop giving the politicalness of the conversation around things like self-management, social awareness, relationship skills, and responsible decision-making. Stop politicizing something that we value for all kids and talk about it in normal terms. When we talk about things at 30,000 feet, we lose sight that we all care about that development. Our kids are not broken. SEL does not fix them. They go through developmental phases. I have 3 children. They need us at all times in that space. Families give what they can give, and that looks different. Educators need to stop judging what is given, and families need to stop judging schools. We have to work collaboratively together to do our best. And so we have this saying, it says, never perfect, always worth it. So when you're going about this work, is focusing on the family and the kids first, not the politics. Don't get distracted. You have to build business plans to this work. What is business plans? It can't just be a phrase or a one-time curriculum. When we talk about our work, it's 4 shifts, right? Shift 1 is school, shift 2 is family, shift 3 is community-based organizations, and shift 4 is the greater community and neighborhoods. As a kid that was a troublemaker in school, you realize that you learn more outside of school than you do in school. And so the more that you can align community in these values, and not values of political parties, but values of what does it mean to make responsible decisions in my community? What does my community tell me? What does that mean for myself? I think that's very important. Really think about your ability to set policy from the boardroom to the living room. You know, talking common sense. Does it pass the sniff test? Am I clear enough as an educator and as a leader of what I'm really trying to accomplish, and how will I measure that? I think Juan Carlos gave some examples of local context. We have continuous achievement plans. Our plans are published. And one aspect of that in our accountability system at the board level is every school will have an SEL plan. Now that local school has to define that SEL plan. It's not one plan for all schools. Now we're a bigger community, so we have the recognition that values may be different values in what does it mean to be responsible, not that we're not going to be responsible. I really think that this idea around that you never arrive in the storm, you just keep on riding the storm and engaging them. And if you're willing to take this conversation on in your community and saying this is something that we want for every kid in our community, then you have to be prepared to recognize that this is not an initiative with a start and stop date. It's a way of life. So in Tacoma, we have the Tacoma Whole Child Initiative. It is something that we ask all of our community partners to sign off on. What does that mean? Every year we do resolutions. We ask the city to sign off on it, all of our nonprofit partners, in our reinstitute commitment as a community. Now, I think what's fun in Tacoma is everyone thinks that they're a part of the Tacoma Whole Child Initiative. Now, they may not know certain aspects of it, but then that's a sign, right? That's a sign that people have that shared value. That's 10, 12 years in the making, right? That's a lot of conversations and supports. And so think about your sustainable change model. Right? So if you're just thinking, well, if I just had a policy or if I fight a policy, what is total? Meaning, how do you want everyone in your community, including the adults, to be thinking about the language? What does that mean, Josh? Well, if kids need to make responsible decisions, are the adults making responsible decisions? Are they have a good self-awareness, a social awareness? And my favorite thing is when we talk about things globally. All schools, no way, all parents, we are unique in our identities and individualities, and we should celebrate that diversity and success. And then we should focus on a few simple things that bring us together. So think about your work in your local community and defining it in clear terms. You can say total, how is that broad all the way through my neighborhood down to my school? How am I functionally applying our shared work? And am I willing to make this a continuous effort? And I have found that, you know, and maybe it's because we live in the Pacific Northwest and it's always raining and stormy, that, you know, the rain's not bad. Rain's not bad. You can do a lot of magical things on behalf of kids. We can talk about our whole child accountability system. We can talk about the number of kids and how we celebrate and partner with community-based organizations and shared SEL strategies across that. We can talk about our parent lessons. I've shared some of those websites. So I've got the hook. See ya.
Josh, thank you so much. There was so much richness in what you said. I'll just pull out from the boardroom to the living room and the emphasis on self-reflection, that we really focus on what's important to us as a family. What do we value? Big picture for our school community, and how can we empathetically listen so that we are really focused less on the buzzwords and more on what really matters. So thank you, Josh. Really appreciate all your important words. I'm going to ask our esteemed panel to do something really tough, but they can do it, which is give your top advice. If you think about all the people who are on our webinar today, we're all facing these divisions, and it can be really discouraging. It can be confusing how to respond. So what's your top advice for our audience as it relates to navigating politicized conversations in education? You have 2 to 3 minutes to respond, and maybe I'll go from the top. Lakeisha, are you ready?
Yes, I am ready. I'll be ready. So Top, really quick. I just want to add on to what Josh said. He began his remarks by saying, do not add to the political polarization, to speak about the things that we value, like SEL in normal terms. We need to be very clear that social and emotional learning, these are essential skills that help children learn and develop. SEL and academics, they are deeply intertwined. Cognitive development and social emotional learning are deeply intertwined. Let's not pit them against each other. Please show up to where you see SEL being attacked. Download our parent toolkit on our Leading with SEL Coalition website, where it provides you with essential resources to help navigate political polarization, but provides just essential information to help you engage in these conversations. The fourth, please get parent buy-in. Engage and create strong family school partnerships. It's just essential to students' academic success and social emotional learning well-being. The last thing, we invite you to celebrate National SEL Week with us, March 4th through the 8th. It is a week that is dedicated to just focusing on just elevating into the national discourse the importance of social emotional learning, the research behind it, and how it benefits our kids and what it looks like when it is implemented with high quality, just like Josh and Juan Carlos talked about today. And that's it.
Lakeisha, so much in such a short period of time. I'm noticing in the chat that the link went in for the CASEL Leading with SEL Parent Toolkit. SEL Week is coming up. Maybe we could put that link in the chat as well. Lots of good advice there. Rose, can we move to you? What's your top advice?
So much. I mean, I've been busy writing as all our panelists were talking, and just some of the things like, of course, engaging your families. And I saw the questions and the question and answer box in the chat. You know, there's so many, like a PTA kind of got disbanded when the pandemic happened, and now we're trying to start it up again. Again, how do you know, the number one question is, how do you engage your families? Well, definitely ask and invite. Families, you ask a parent to do something, they're not going to say no. It's when you think that they're just going to read your mind, that they are going to come out there and be part of the family school partnership. It's not going to work that way. So if you're here as a parent, a PTA leader, ask and invite a parent. If you're here as a teacher, administrator, ask and invite your parents. It's as easy as that. Another thing that I want to share, you know, I mentioned it, I heard it a few times, the parent voice is so important. And, you know, when we talk about the parent voice, don't think just because you have a school board member that also happens to be a parent, that they're the voice that's going to sit there to have that parent voice. You need of course they're parents, but you also want a designated or, you know, an parent that will give that voice to you. Collaboration, I think I heard that from all our panelists. You know, we working with principals and supervisor association, working with our superintendents, our school boards, our education association. That is what empowers and gives our parents the capacity, our parent groups. So again, you know, if I could end it with one thing, because I know we're short on times, families want to feel welcomed in their child's education. So it has to be to make sure we are working together so that we have a welcoming, supportive, inclusive schools for all students and families.
Rose, thank you so much. Ask and invite. I love it. Thank you. Juan Carlos, we'll turn to you. What is your top advice?
I'm going to go back to what I stated earlier. Parents understand the importance of social emotional learning, both at home and at school. Their insights and their perspectives are critical to informing, supporting, and sustaining SEL efforts. I feel the need to address the school leaders on this call. I urge you to open your doors to parents and make them full partners in this work so that SEL practices can be extended into the home. If this happens in meaningful ways, caregivers will understand child and adolescent development and teachers will understand family backgrounds and cultures, thereby providing opportunities for collaboration and partnership. The result is going to be powerful. Well, it's going to be relationship building that is truly developmental, because students will discover who they are, right? As parents, all we want is for students to really discover, for our children to discover who they are, to develop abilities to shape their own lives and to learn how to engage with and to contribute to their own world. And if they can do that at home and at school, that is a win-win for everyone. And that can only be done through real partnership with school.
Thank you, Juan Carlos. Through real, authentic partnership with school. Absolutely. All right. Last but not least, Josh, what are your top tips for us?
Yeah, I think I'm a little stuck. So I'll say, I see a lot of tough things in society, a lot of ugly things. I see a lot of adults do horrific things to kids on a daily basis. And I don't think that we are unique in ours. Human trafficking, sexual abuse, mental and physical abuse. I think we all have to recognize as we go through this is that life is hard. Life is hard for a lot of people. So be patient and be clear. Be willing to demystify and stop using jargon. It's not SEL, right? SEL is, what's SEL? We expect families to know what SEL is. You have to be willing to demystify. So what is that we're talking about so that people feel safe to engage, safe to be able to support it, and they can see themselves have a voice in this. Understand the difference between politics and government. Use the governmental process at your local level, at the state level, at the federal level to do what's right for all kids, but stay out of the political fray. And then I would just say is you got to look yourself in the mirror at the end of the day and say, I'm willing to fight for kids. I'm not willing to fight for a specific issue as much as I'm willing to fight for kids. And there's so much to unpack in that statement. It's not lost on me. But are you truly grounded in what's best for kids? Because if you're doing this for an organization or for any other reason, I'm telling you, it's gonna kick you. And so always do what's best for kids, no matter what kind of feedback that you get, what kind of pushback you get. And recognize that once again, you're not here to fix anybody. You're here to partner with it. It may not be perfect, but it should always be worth it.
Josh, I want a banner that says, are you grounded in what's best for kids? I love that. And that is, it's such a simple question. And it's the question that we need to return to again and again about our motivations and why we're doing the things that we're doing in education. I'm going to turn it over to Kwesi to give some reflections on the panel. Thank you so much, panel, for your top tips. Kwesi?
Yes, thanks. Thanks so much, Jennifer. And what an incredible panel. And we're going to get to some questions and answers. And I think, Josh keeps reminding us, one of the reasons why some of these things get so easily politicized is because the use of jargon is, the jargon becomes a weapon. And when I think about all of the practices, and you have to go back and watch this video to mark down all the practices that Carlos laid out, and all of these activities and all of these things that parents are participating in, and most of them probably have no idea that those things are a social emotional learning practice, right? They're just participating in stuff that's meaningful to them, that they enjoy, and they're enjoying having an active partnership. So as Josh reminded us, get rid of the jargon. We got to develop common language. When you develop common language and you appeal a little bit more to common sense and shared values, it's less easy to turn it into a political debate, because it really, there's less to debate about. And some people will always find something to debate about, but the vast majority of people who even are anti-SEL, they don't even really know what SEL is. They're anti the jargon. They've been fed some bad information about what it represents. and they think they're protecting their kid by engaging in this battle. And so it's on us, you know, as our principal reminding us, we've got to flip the script a little bit, and not give folks ammunition. And that's what I heard a lot of. We heard so many powerful examples, simple things, you know, ask and invite a parent. Sending out an email to 200 parents is not the same thing as asking and inviting a parent. We've got to actually ask and invite a parent, strike up a conversation, find ways to talk to parents. I know it's a challenge in some buildings where parents are not allowed in the building for security reasons and other kinds of things, but this is where we have to exercise our creativity. And then just the last thing I'll say, and Jennifer, thanks so much for grounding us in our values, our beliefs, hopes, and dreams. You know, you guys listed a lot of intriguing things, you know, many voices, one song, many perspectives, one goal. And then one caught my eye in particular that I think is what I'll end on is, you know, somebody put the question in how are the children? Are they all well? And there's a tribe in Africa, the Maasai tribe, and where that's their traditional greeting, Kasarian and Jerry. It means, and how are the children? They don't ask each other, how are you? They don't ask you individually, how's your day? But really their question is asking about the next generation because they believe that monitoring the well-being of their children is the best way to determine the future health and prosperity of their whole society. And so for us, if we can figure out a way, and on Valentine's Day, I'm wearing my red, you know, I'm trying to operationalize love. Operationalize is a jargony word, but I think you all know what it means. We got to bring love into these conversations. Because when people feel love, when parents feel love, when communities feel love, when students feel love, when they feel that connection, they're much more apt to thrive and do better. And that at the end of the day is what we're trying to be about. And so we've got to figure out ways to bring that principle in and how are the children and think about our next generation. So great panel. I know we're going to go to Q&A. Thanks, Jennifer, for bringing that into the room. We should always ground these conversations in what we believe deeply so that we can stay focused.
Kwesi, Kwesi took it to love, and I think in our heady, cognitive-based conversations, we often miss out on talking about bottom line values and principles. And so Kwesi, thanks on Valentine's Day every day for taking us there. And how are the children is a question I will take forward with me. Thank you for that so much. I want to ask one more question of the panel, and then we're going to move on to question and answer. So if you, as you're stewing on all this good stuff, if you've got a question brewing in you, you can start to type that into the Q&A. And while we are typing questions into the Q&A, I'd like to ask the panel, and this is for, we don't have to go through everyone, for anyone who would like to respond, and please raise your hand so I can call on you classroom style. How do we build trust? With the polarization has eaten away at trust, has created an us and them, unfortunately, between parents, families, and schools when we want it to be a we. We know it's essential for it to be a we. We are parents. We are educators. So how do we build trust? Who's up for that question? Yes, Rose.
So I could tell again, as a parent, the best way to build trust is when a parent comes to you, because when you're a parent leader, the parents are going to come to you first because they feel more comfortable with that. And when you say to them, you can go and talk to the principal, you go and discuss that with the superintendent, knowing that when they go to the principal or the superintendent or even a school board, and that they are going to feel welcomed, that they're going to feel heard, that is how the trust is built between our families and administrators and teachers at a school. It's that simple. Knowing that again, someone comes to me and I can say, go to the principal, he or she will want to hear from you. And knowing that they are going to accept them and answer their question as honestly as possible is what's going to build trust for a parent.
Say it like it is, and be direct and transparent about your communications from the heart. The Crucial Conversations book, which is one I love, talks about the pool of shared meaning. How can we find shared meaning in our language to make those connections and bring us all to the same conversation? Thank you for that. Okay, so I'm gonna move to our Q&A. We've got lots of questions. I'm gonna focus on one about limited English proficiency, speaking of language. Not all schools provide language access for parents to participate. Is this left for each state to make the decision? How do schools who have families with multiple languages, English as a second language, deal with a lack of resources in this area? Anyone want to speak to this question? Again, if you would raise your hand if you're ready to respond. Yeah, Josh slowly raises his hand.
Nobody
Go
else
ahead.
is jumping in there. So this is a real challenge, right? And so, we get beat up a lot, right? We get beat up that we should have everything written down, every parent communication, every piece to that. And it's just, there's no way to do it. And so I'm going to tie a couple things together. Is language access lines are extremely helpful, right? And we try to use those for the most important things. You use the technology the best you can and make sure that it's that you're educating folks on how to use that. But for our most critical conversations and those parent conversations, we try to use that language line. We are not predominantly one ethnic background. We have so many different languages spoken, and so we have to use those tools and technologies, and we have to help staff do that. That's a funding issue. We have to support that. We have to prioritize that, and we do those things. We try to teach some of our SEL lessons and offer them in different languages to our families online so they can see what we're doing in that space. And then we really activate kids' voice. Many of you guys have this in your schools. And what does it mean to be safe in the bathroom? What does it mean to be safe in the hallway? What does it mean to be respectful? What does it mean to be responsibility? And using I should know these things. I'm in charge of an education system, but I can't find the words myself, right? Using pictures that unify us, but then making sure those pictures are inclusive in itself, right? Engaging kids in that. Everything from gender identity down to what is our different ethnic backgrounds, down to students that we celebrate with that maybe have a disability. And so families can see those visuals in SEL as well. And so once again, not perfect, but trying to make it better.
Yeah, not perfect. Thank you, Josh, but trying to make it better. There were two questions in the Q&A that focused on the most disengaged parents. How do you reach out to truly partner with marginalized families, disengaged families? And I know those are two different things. But the idea is, how do you bring families into the fold who may not naturally show up at the school door? Who's willing to respond? Yeah. Go ahead, Juan Carlos.
What we have done in the past is really align the needs of our families with the programming that we have available here at the school. We have robust academies, CTE academies, career and technical education academies. For example, we have automotive, we have culinary, we have architectural, solar, manufacturing, plumbing. We do assessment needs of our families. We do home visits for our families, wellness checks for our families, especially those whose students have disconnected, right? And those families have disconnected. And we really, as part of this wellness checks and assessments, really look at what needs the families have, not just the students, but the needs that the families have. And it usually is very similar to the needs that the students have, really, right? It's these behaviors or aberrant behavior is a sign of needs that are not being met, and that applies not only to students but to the families. And so we try to connect them with the resources in the school or in the community that we have access to. And as Josh says, it's not perfect, but we continue to work on those things. And it usually happens that families are in need of something that the school can give them access to. And we've had a lot of success with just connecting them to resources that we have access to, and just giving them the information that families don't have is already a great resource that they at times didn't even know that they had access to.
Thank you, Juan Carlos. That's super helpful. We're reminded as well in the Q&A to be sure when you're setting up committees, leadership teams, to not forget to look for parents of neurodiverse learners, those with IEPs and 504. So thank you for that question. We're running low on time, so we're gonna move to the panel and just ask, how can we find you? Where can we find your good work and resources? And I'm going to turn that to Lakeisha first.
Sure, absolutely. Thank you so very much, Jennifer. There was a question in the chat, and it was just about, in terms of SEL and instruction. And I just want to just offer some CASEL resources. We do have our CASEL guide, school guide, that includes 10 indicators for success. Obviously, explicit SEL instruction is one of them, as well as SEL integrated with academic instruction. And so I just want to share these resources because a lot of these questions that I'm seeing in the chat really has to do with fidelity, the implementation of SEL being implemented with fidelity. And so just wanting to let you know that those resources are there. In terms of being in touch with my team and what we do here, again, please go to the Leading with SEL Coalition. If there's any interest, if there are any organizations on the line that are interested in joining the Leading with SEL Coalition, it is a coalition of 35 national organizations that are standing united in support of making sure that we support students' social and emotional learning. If you're interested, we do invite you to join us and to go to our website. And the other thing is we cannot say this, I cannot underestimate this, but the National SEL Week, March 4th through the 8th. It is the first full week of March annually every year. This is our second annual National SEL Week. And so we do invite you just to flood the national discourse, as Josh mentioned, which is explaining what SEL is in very simple terms, what it looks like in practice, why it matters for meaningful family engagement and to support students' academic success and social emotional development, and how you are engaging families, around social and emotional learning and how it benefits students. So we just cannot underestimate the value of just lifting up these amazing stories and our amazing leaders who are at the forefront doing this work.
Thanks so much, Lakeisha. I appreciate that. And I'm going to turn it to Rose. Where can we find your good work?
So, there's just so much. I know that Daniel has shared great resources that PTA has in the chat throughout this past hour. So please definitely utilize those. But for immediate ask, we ask that you join us by co-sponsoring House Resolution 219, which is the Bill of Rights for Students and Parents. Over the last few years, there has been increased interest from policymakers in uplifting the parent voice, like I talked about today, and strengthening that family engagement in our nation's education system. But what is most needed are policies emphasizing inclusive and meaningful family engagement that promote safe, welcoming, supportive, inclusive schools for all students and family. And the Bill of Rights for Students and Parents, a resolution, would affirm the commitment of Congress to help promote meaningful and inclusive family engagement and involvement in K-12 education, as well as, and I keep saying, to be able to commit to building safe, welcoming, supportive, and inclusive schools across the nation.
Thank you so much, Rose. Appreciate all of your insights. Juan Carlos, where can we find your good work?
Thank you. We are a demonstration school for all things competency-based education, and our next demonstration visit is in the fourth quarter, so in the month of May. And you can look up those dates for anyone interested at benitojuarez.net. I just put it in the chat. And you can also find me at jcocon@cps.edu. I also included that in the chat. Daniel also has my contact information. I can also put everyone in touch with Maria Ramirez, our parent program coordinator, for anyone who'd like to stop by and also do a visit with our parent university parenting program coordinator and do some observations within our parent university. All are welcome. We'd love to learn from you and we'd love to share our journey in competency-based education and all things SEL.
Juan Carlos, we are grateful for you and your good work. Appreciate that. Let me turn it over to Josh. Where can we find your good work?
I think I gave Daniel some websites for us to share. I put my email in there. I try to stay out of the radar as much as possible. So whatever you read on the internet is not true. So feel free to email me. I'm happy to help those that are interested in the work. And at the same time, I wish everyone the best of luck.
Thanks so much, Josh. We really appreciate you. I'm going to turn it back to Daniel.
Thank you so much, Jennifer. And thank you again to all of our panelists. This has been a really wonderful conversation. So I appreciate the dialogue and all of the wonderful insight that you've provided and all of those resources that are compiled and now shared with all of our attendees. Now, before I give kind of those concluding remarks, I do want to share my screen because, Jennifer, I know that you have a few things that are in the pipeline right now, and I really want to give you a moment just to highlight what you have going on. So let me go ahead and toss it back over to you.
Yeah, I thank you, Daniel. I thought this was a perfect opportunity to announce and launch an online community for a learning community for parent volunteers. So often we see teachers getting necessary professional development, but our parent volunteers serve critical roles, whether they're school board members or they're PTA members, or their lunch bunch support, or their reading intervention supports, troop leaders. There are so many parent volunteers who can be ambassadors for family engagement if only we gave them the skills. So as of today, I'm launching an online learning community called Confident Parents Community, where parents can join. They can come as a cohort from a school or a district and learn leadership skills and learn how to be ambassadors to involve and engage all families in their school community. So check it out, QR code and website confidentparentscommunity.com. Thanks for the opportunity to launch that today, Daniel.
Hey, of course. Thanks for being able to launch it today. We appreciate it. I'll be sure to put the link in our shared panelist resources as well so people can access it there. So I just want to take a moment to once again thank everybody here for taking the time to really showcase our conversation, depoliticizing family engagement and social and emotional learning. So thank you again to Jennifer Miller, our wonderful moderator, all of our panelists, Josh Garcia, Rosa Chera, Juan Carlos Ocan, and Lakeisha Steele, of course. Thank you for the collaboration to the Institute for Educational Leadership, as always, and Kwesi and your team, and Lakeisha and your team for helping us partner for this webinar as well. So thank you to CASEL for that. And thank you to Kate Claybaugh for giving us some framing remarks at the beginning as well. So before I close out, I really want to remind everyone that this session was fully recorded. We will be sending out the recording and the saved chat to everyone in a follow-up email. There will be an exit survey following this webinar, so please take a minute to fill this out so we can continue to improve our future webinar sessions and make them even more applicable for all of you in the field. Our next Transforming Family School Partnerships PTA National Standards webinar will be on Wednesday, March 13th. The focus of the session will be exploring PTA community school partnerships. And we will be hearing from featured speakers such as Deanna Creighton, who is the interim director for Bernalillo County in New Mexico for the Community Schools Innovation and Strategic Partnerships Department. Melanie Maestas, who is a quality management coordinator for Central New Mexico as a part of the New Mexico Public Education Department's Community Schools Bureau, and Eder Ortiz, who is the principal of East San Jose Elementary School, which is a major community schools in the Albuquerque area. And we'll have a few other speakers that will be announced later on as well. And this conversation will really focus on that intersection between PTAs and community schools and uplift the work that New Mexico has been doing to create that wonderful collaborative environment that uplifts family engagement to help set students up for success. So once again, everyone that registered for today's webinar has also been registered for the other webinars in our series. We encourage you to share the registration link with all of your colleagues and contacts. And then once again, thank you everyone for taking the time to participate in this discussion. I hope you all learned something today, and we look forward to seeing you next month at our next conversation. Have a good day.